What's up, fantastic people? I'm Anthony, and today we're going to talk about the 5 credit mistakes that you're probably making. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 5, not having any active lines of credit. When it comes to developing a strong credit score, lenders want to see really 2 main things: low account balances and on-time payments. For many people, they utilize their debit card as their primary source of purchasing. And while that's completely okay, it doesn't actually impact your credit score because you're using your own money. In order to get the positive impacts for the purchases you're already making, what you want to do is open up a credit card, ideally with no annual fee, and that can be used at multiple locations. By using this card once a month for a small purchase, say a tank of gas, lunch, maybe even a small trip to the grocery store, you're showing that that account is actually being used and is active, but you're keeping that balance really low and very manageable to be paid. By paying this account each month on time, you're not only borrowing money responsibly, but also showing that you can take and repay that money, and as a result, are going to see the positive impacts to your credit score. Each month that you take and pay these accounts on time, you're going to compound that positive credit history and thus see a really strong gain to your credit score. For individuals I've worked with in the past, using just these 2 steps, they've been able to cultivate scores in the 700s and thus keep their credit in a really prime place. Number 4, neglecting charged off and collection accounts. For many Americans, getting harassed daily from collection companies wanting payment for accounts that they have written off or sold to other parties is a consistently annoying experience. So rather than allowing those to continue, what we want to do is get them addressed. But how we get them addressed is what matters. Now, we'll start with charged off accounts because they're a little bit simpler. Charged off accounts are accounts that you had an agreement with the original creditor and they've now written this debt off, meaning that they've tried to collect, the account's been neglected, they were unable to receive payment, so they've taken a tax incentive and written the debt off. In order to get the positive benefit for these accounts, we need to get them settled to 0, meaning we just need the account to show as 0. That doesn't mean that you have to pay the full balance. In many cases, you can actually save quite a bit of money. What I typically recommend doing is giving a call to the creditor, letting them know that you'd like to work with them to try to get this account tackled, and start by offering 25 to 30%. Sometimes they'll accept that offer and we'll get it paid and taken care of. Other times they're looking for a little more money and they'll negotiate back with you. At the end of the day, your goal is to try to save as much money as possible, and their goal is going to be to try to get as much money as possible from you. What we want to do is start really low at that 25 to 30% because it gives you negotiating power. If they're going to go up, maybe they only go up 20% and we meet at a 50% rather than starting at a 50 to 70% offer and then you're up closer to 100% when they finally negotiate back and forth. Ideally, they're going to accept a lower amount than the full balance, and you're going to confirm that in return for this payment, you're showing this account as settled and going to be reflecting a $0 balance, correct? Once they confirm that, yes, indeed, they are accepting this account balance as settled, you're going to go ahead and proceed forward with that payment. After that payment processes and they have time to update the system, typically 30 to 60 days, you should see that update and reflect on your credit report and thus get the score boost from that charged off account being resolved. Now, collections are a little bit different. The reason why is because collections are an account that you had with a creditor that has now been sold to a third party, typically at a fraction of what your account balance actually is. This third party now takes and collects on behalf of this original creditor to try to get that money back. They're typically trying to seek the full balance. Now, they know that they're usually not going to get the full balance, so again, in order to tackle these accounts, what we want to do is give them a call, verify the information, and offer 25 to 30% to start. You want that negotiation room to be able to save as much money as possible. Now, where collections differ from charged off accounts is this is now with a third party. meaning it's not held by the original creditor. So we can't just get it settled to 0 to get the score boost. We have to get it deleted. If they will not delete this account, do not pay them. You are wasting your money and you will not get the score boost that you're looking for. Collections have to be deleted to get the score boost. So when it comes to paying these accounts, give them a call, negotiate, but confirm in return for payment, you are agreeing to delete this from the credit report. If they say yes, go ahead and proceed forward with the payment, and then note that information to watch on your credit report, typically again 30 to 60 days. But if they refuse, it may not be an absolute no. That first person you speak to sometimes just doesn't have the authority to delete. So it doesn't hurt to request a supervisor or try back again in a few days if you're getting a particularly unhelpful rep. Regardless, I'd say you need to try at least 3 times on one account to verify that it's an absolute no. If they continue to push back and say no after your 3rd attempt, it may be wise to focus on some other accounts. They are not required to delete, but that is how you will get a score boost if you are able to get those accounts removed. Number 3, late payments. Late payments are by far the fastest way to see your credit score drop. I've seen individual scores drop anywhere from 70 to 100 points for just one late payment. So in order to save yourself the hassle, let's talk about how we can remedy these late payments. When it comes to late payments, there's a few different ways we can tackle them. The first thing I suggest doing though is getting a auto pay plan set up. Most lending institutions have some form of auto pay that you can set up. Now, for many people, there's concerns that they don't have the full balance, or they're concerned that it's going to withdraw too much. That's okay. What I recommend doing is at least setting up the minimal payment to always be auto paid. That way, if you happen to forget one month, you're not seeing your credit score take a huge drop. Instead, you're getting a little bit of interest, but your credit score is staying preserved. This minimum payment gives you the peace of mind to know that, hey, in the event life gets too hectic, you at least have that being pulled out and your credit score is going to be in a good place. But let's say something happens and you miss a payment. Don't fret, it's not the end of the world. There's some ways we can potentially get those removed. Time is of the essence though, and that's what I want to stress. You have to be proactive. If you have an active late mark, we can't dally. We have to take action immediately. And so what I recommend doing is if you're within 30 days of that late payment, so let's say your payment was due on the 1st and it's currently the 15th. It hasn't went 30 days past due. I would give the creditor a call, let them know, hey, I'm sorry, I noticed this account payment wasn't made. I wanted to see what steps we can take to get this addressed. Typically, you're going to want to bring the account balance full if possible. But before you proceed with any payment, simply ask them, hey, would you mind waiving this late fee as a one-time courtesy? I know it's my responsibility to keep the account on time and I just happened to forget this month. I'd be glad to bring that current. If it's within 30 days, typically there's no late mark reported because the account hasn't actually went 30 days past due. But let's say that account is now 30 days past due and it's already updated on your credit report as late. What we want to do is still call the creditor, let them know, hey, I was reviewing my credit report and I noticed that I had a late mark showing. I sincerely apologize. I know it's my responsibility to keep this account on time, but I'd be glad to bring it current. Would you be willing to remove that late payment as a one-time courtesy for me? Most lending institutions will remove one late for you if you bring the account current. The thing is, you can't let these lates compound. It becomes extremely difficult to get more than one late removed from an account if it goes 60, 90, 180 days past due. So being proactive is really important to seeing your success and your credit score stay in a healthy place. Just pay your accounts to 0. That's going to show really dependable payment history. And it does. And for the most part, this works. Others will say, well, as long as you keep your card under 30%, that's where you're going to get a good point return. And this too is true. You'll get a good point return. However, you'll actually get the highest point return when your card balance is under 10% but above zero. So ideally, I recommend when you're trying to squeeze every point out of your credit report to keep at least $5 to $10 on just one card. The reason why is because if all of your accounts show as zero, it raises red flags to the credit bureaus questioning whether these accounts are open and active or if they're going to close. As a result, it creates some uncertainty, and so they hold back some points. Not a lot, but some. In order to get these points, what you want to do is keep most of your cards paid off or paid under 10%. But at least one account needs to have a small balance on it. And what this is going to do is it's going to show that your account is being used, number one, really responsibly because it's got such a low balance. And number two, that your accounts are open and active. As a result, you're going to see some extra points returned back to you. And thus, you're going to be squeezing out every last point you can get from your credit report. This is a tip that I really recommend only if you're applying for specific lines of credit, say as a auto loan or potentially a mortgage, really where you want to get as high of a score as possible so you can try to qualify for the best rates possible. If you're someone that is paying your account on a monthly basis and just using your card as is, you don't need to do this because you're not needing to get every point possible. But if you're someone that's on the edge of qualifying from fair credit to good credit, you really want to get every point possible so you can qualify for that higher credit bucket and thus typically qualify for better rates. And number one, the biggest credit mistake that you're probably making is not strategically timing your payments. What I mean by this, you have a due date for your bill. Each month your credit card statement is due by a specific date. For all intents and purposes, we're going to say that your bill is due by the 10th of each month. And we're going to say you have a $1,000 credit limit. Now, you are responsible and you always pay your credit card on time. You pay it on the 1st of each month. That's awesome. Definitely what we want to see is on-time payments and paying before your bill is due. However, when it comes to actually reporting that data to the credit bureaus, most credit card companies only report once a month. There are a few exceptions. Some report bi-weekly or weekly. These cards are really uncommon. Most report once a month. So when they report that data once a month is really what matters, because depending on when they report it, it's going to definitely impact what balance they're reporting to the bureaus. Let's say your credit card company always reports on the 25th of each month. Well, the problem with that is if you're someone that uses your card for the majority of your expenses, let's say you carry a 90% balance, so $900 of a $1,000 limit, then they report that on the 25th to the credit bureaus that you're using 90% of your limit. You always pay it down on the 1st before your bill is due, but they're reporting on the 25th. The credit bureaus are always going to see that you're having a high credit utilization, and thus they're going to hold points back from you. However, if you strategically time your payment, instead of paying on the 1st of each month, you push that back maybe a few days before that payment is actually reporting, say the 20th, that gives you 5 days for that payment to not only process, but also post and update and reflect on your account. So when the credit card company actually reports it to the credit bureaus, you're seeing that small utilization actually posting to your account rather than that 90% utilization posting. As a result, you're going to receive a higher point return because you're going to show that your credit utilization is low rather than being at a 90%. As a result, you're consistently getting more points back. Now you're probably wondering, well, how do I find this out? I thought I just needed to have it paid by the statement date. Absolutely true. The best way of finding that information is to utilize any credit tracking app that will give you access to your credit report. Many people use Credit Karma, and you can simply go into your full credit report. It'll show the actual date of last report. And what you want to do is look at the date that bill actually updated last with the credit bureaus, because that's going to be what actually affects your score. So let's say you look and your credit card is due on the 25th. Like I stated before, you want to pay that down about 5 days prior. It just allows enough time for that payment to process, post, and actually update on the account. So they're pushing the right data to the credit bureaus. This is what's going to actually help you squeeze out those extra points, because when you're showing that lower utilization, it's giving you more points back because you're showing that you're a responsible borrower and can pay your account on time. And as a result, these are the best ways to actually take and boost your credit score. And there you have it, friends. The top 5 biggest credit mistakes that you're probably making. Test these tips out yourself and see the positive impact that you can have on your own score. If you learned something new, share it with a friend. And if you have questions, drop those below. Like always, remember to like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you great credit content. And I'll see you in the next video.